Alright, well this is a additional feature for dealing with certificate issues that might arise with DPD. This actually happened to me at my work when we had this implemented. They decided to implement a no-shit certificate on the call manager, which broke the directory. So if I went to, query DPD, which calls on Axel and a bunch of other stuff, for the call manager, it gave me this error 500 on the internal server. So we actually had to go back, and it took me about a week to figure it out, that they changed the certificate and what to do in response to that. So I'm going to show you how to fix it, and the fix that I'm using in the lab environment, which happens to work with the lab environment, but did not actually work with my production environment. And I'll also show you how we fixed it in production, but if for some reason that fix doesn't work in my lab environment. So the real problem is that my web server is not on the domain along with the rest of my domain and certificate infrastructure, and it doesn't trust the call manager website anymore because it has no way to validate the certificate. So if I take a look at the certificate and go to certification path, it's indicating that it's looking for this CA root certificate in order to verify that this is who it says it is. Now, to be honest, I suck in certificates. I'm more of a stick and move kind of guy. I don't really need to know the anatomy of the enemy. I just need to know where to stab them so I can move on to the next person. Same thing with troubleshooting here. I'm just going to show you what works. Be honest, I don't really know why it works. If you do, put it down in the comments and tell me how big of an idiot I am. So what I'm going to do is grab this certificate from my domain computer and import it in, and tell PHP to start using it. So I go to start run cert mgr.msa. I'm going to go to trusted root certificate authorities and look for that certificate related to that CA we identified earlier. It happens to be that one. I'll just go to all task and export. Follow the wizard. I'm going to use base 64. Like I said, I'm not exactly sure why, but it worked. I'll just name the CA cert. It doesn't really matter. Might want to copy the name. Now put it in a share folder. Just make it a little easier to find. Next, finish. Okay, I'll pop on back over to the web server. And I could have probably just copied it direct over to VMware, but I'm having issues with VMware and copying stuff over, so I gotta take the long way around. Alright, I'm gonna copy this over to the inet pub, www root, along with everything else. And something else I need to grab is not this original DPD, because that's for self-signed certificates, and sort of tells a PHP to ignore the self-signed certificate. And I'm going to have to get this updated one that I got packaged with DPD called for working certificates. So I'll just copy that over to inet pub. I'm going to make the original DPD the php.old. Yep. Paste this in, change the name to just dpd php. And I'll go ahead and open this with, just make it a little bit easier, open with Notepad. Copy all this information here that relates to my environment. Edit this, and I'll just paste on over it so I don't got to retype everything. And something I don't have variabled out, and I'll have to go through a little bit. Close that. Are these SSL options. I want to change this name to the cert name I just copied in there. So we'll go www root and insert that in, and we're going to change the CN match over to the host name of the call manager. Alright, Looks all correct to me. File save. And like I said, this should work in my lab environment. Find out in a minute here. And it worked. Took a minute. So if that worked for you, really no reason to go any further. However, like I said, in my production environment at work, that method doesn't work. I have a feeling that it's because it's joined to a domain, and maybe there's a policy somewhere I don't know about that requires two-way communication to be authenticated. So basically, what I got to do is create a certificate for the server. In order to do that, I got to create a certificate request and re-import it and use that in the same way with the same PHP file we just copied in. And for some reason, that's working in my production. Maybe it'll work for you. It's definitely not going to work in my lab, but at least we'll go through the motions here. So back on the web server, we're going to go into IIS management from server manager. Just got to manage this. And just get on the server itself. Yeah, whatever. And choose server certificates. We're going to create a certificate request. Now, the common name is the most important thing. That should be the fully qualified domain name of your server, which mine is all weird because I stuck with the default. If you have a domain after that, just .domain or whatever, but I'm on a non-domain computer. Everything else isn't as important, but I'll go ahead and pretend it like it is. Somewhere in Georgia. Not even sure where I am right now. We're going to go with a Microsoft RSA S-channel cryptographic provider, which is default for me, and I'm going to go with a 2048. Some applications may require different cryptographic providers. However, we use that for our template that we're going to create the certificate with. Alright, I'm going to choose the certificate authority. Excuse me, that would be if you're in a domain, you could choose the certificate authority that you'd be using, but I'm not attached to a domain, so maybe that's why this doesn't work for me. So with this, we'll just specify the name, the file name for the certificate request. Cert request web server, I guess. Alright, sounds good to me. And finish it up. Now I'm going to go and take this request and copy it over to my domain controller under certain role, at least in my environment. It may be different in your production environment. And this is a domain controller that I have acting as a certificate authority. That's probably going to be a different server for you, of course. And this part might even need to be taken care of by a domain admin, the part we're at least going to go into in a minute here. I actually had to go grab a domain admin to execute this portion of the procedure. So I'm going to remote into my certificate authority. Now open up a command prompt window as the administrator, which I already have because it's server core. And navigate to the certificate server, the certain role that I placed that file into, which in default setup is going to be under Windows System 32 certs, or you see the path there. So now I'm going to actually do the cert request, which is cert req tac attrib, and in quotes, we're just going to specify the certificate template to use. And I'm just going to use the default web server one, because the one I created failed miserably. And the quote, we'll just name this whatever we name that cert request. Press enter, and I'm going to choose in my case, DDC 06, because that's my CA server. Okay, it's going to poop out that request. I'm going to navigate to that same share, put it right in there to make it easier to get over. And it would probably be best to practice to name this after the server, but it's a long server name. I can't remember what it is. Yeah, I'll just go with that. If I have to rename it later, I will. Alright, saved, and we're done with that portion. Domain admin can go back to doing domain admin stuff. Alright, back on that web server, I'm going to collect the certificate. Got to do some weird stuff to get it, so pay no attention to where the directory I was in. Got to paste that in there. And what I want to do is get the name of this, copy it, open up this dpd.php, and instead of using a CA cert, I'm just going to use that cert itself. Now, like I said, this, and what else I'll do is go complete that certificate request. Under IIS, choose complete certificate request, browse to this file I just uploaded. Friendly name. That's super friendly. I'll keep it with personal and go OK. This will take a minute. And there she is. So I can verify that it worked. In my case, it probably isn't going to work. Maybe it will for you. Of course, I got to get in the right directory. And I get the 500 error still. But maybe it worked for you. And if it did, congratulations, you fixed it. So, thanks for watching.